It is a time for all ages, friends, and I always use this time when I can to do my favorite thing, which is make art. See, I'm not just a speaker and a pastor. I am also a poet and a writer. Sometimes I like to make music or rhythm or just noise. And I also love art and I love dance. And so I brought some of my friends' favorite things because making art and sharing creatively is a big part of the Poor People's Campaign movement. In the original Poor People's Campaign movement, there wasn't the internet at that time. So it took a lot of money and a lot of effort to even make song sheets and give the lyrics out to everyone so that people could sing together. So simple songs or chants were used to get the crowd all able to do something together. And people would dance, write poems, or make art as a way of sharing and contributing and helping folks understand what it felt like to really struggle in this country, even if they weren't someone who'd been to school and knew how to use lots of big words, or was just interested in listening or reading to longer passages and longer written words or speeches. In the new Poor People's Campaign, there are wonderful art galleries and wonderful collections of visual art and poetry, videos of dance, and of course, music, songs, and chanting, as well as even books that have been written, all of which are available on the Poor People's Campaign website and are available on the Poor People's Campaign Facebook page. I think you would have a lot of fun exploring those galleries together and seeing all of the art that people have made from the Poor People's Campaign. One of the things that I would love to invite you to do, if you are at home, you can grab a piece of paper and whatever your favorite art materials are, if it's crayons or markers or paint, and make a piece of art like what my beautiful friend Rain Dawn did. This piece of art is called Elemental Flow. And this is a piece of spiritual art that my friend Rain, who is Native American, made, inspired by the journey towards justice and the way that the entire country works together to try and find a way that we are all able to be connected. And if making art isn't your very favorite thing, then you can also make music. In fact, one of the chants that will be sung at the June gathering as a way of bringing people together when we're all in Washington, D.C., marching and singing and having an amazing time raising awareness and being in community, is about the way that we are not going to be quiet or silent. It's called Someone's Hurting, and it's gone on far too long. And there are two parts in there. One for the song leader, which I'll practice this time, and one for you, if you'd like to learn it with me. So your part is pretty easy. It just is using the words far too long. And so when I point to you, you can sing back to me, far too long, and just say it as loud as you can, because that's how long some of these things have been going on. So the song goes like this. Somebody's hurting my family, and it's gone on. Now that's your part, and you'll say, far too long, and then I'll say, and it's gone on, and you'll say, far too long, and it's gone on, far too long. I said somebody's hurting my family, and it's gone on, far too long, and we won't be silent anymore. So that's the song we'll all sing in June, and we can change the verses. So if someone's been hurting our siblings, or someone's been hurting our students, or someone's been hurting people who are poor, we can change those words and make sure we lift them up and that people are paying attention and knowing that it's not okay to hurt anyone. So why don't we try one more verse all together? I know that one of the things that we don't want anyone hurting is our children, our young people, whether that's you or whether that's a student, a friend of yours from school, whether it's a brother, a sister, a sibling in your family, or whether it's someone on your sports team or that you're in a play with. We don't want any children being hurt, right? So why don't we sing together that if someone's been hurting our children, well, it's gone on far too long, and we won't be silent anymore. Okay? Here we go. Somebody's hurting our children, and it's gone on far too long, and it's gone on far too long, and it's gone on far too long. Somebody's hurting our children, and it's gone on far too long, and we won't be silent anymore. Now, how about our people? Somebody's hurting our people, and it's gone on far too long, and it's gone on far too long, and it's gone on far too long. Somebody's hurting our people, and it's gone on far too long, and we won't be silent anymore. You all did a great job, and I'm glad that you are not silent. And I also would love to see your artwork, or if you were doing dance moves while we were singing, or if you were singing along. So if you want to put any of those videos on Facebook or share those pictures of art as a comment underneath the video of this service, either on YouTube or on Facebook, that would be amazing. I can't wait to see the beautiful pieces of artwork or dance or music that you all made. Thanks for playing along and having fun with me.
One more step. Ready?
One more step. We will take one more step till there is peace for us, and everyone will take one more step.
One more word.
One more word. We will say one more word till every word is heard by everyone. We'll say one more word.
One more prayer.
One more prayer. We will say one more prayer till every prayer is shared by everyone. We'll say one more prayer.
One more song.
One more song. We will sing one more song till every song is sung by everyone. We'll sing one more song.
Greetings, friends. For those of you that I'm just getting to meet for the first time, I'm Reverend Carla Christopher. I've been here in York as an activist and an advocate for almost 15 years, whether it's through the arts, as a poet and an educator in our schools and our library systems, as a community organizer with healthcare as a human right, or LGBTQ organizations, or whether it's as part of religious and faith-based organizations as an administrator. The wonderful thing about all the different types of work that I've been blessed to do in this community is that I've been exposed to so many wonderful people, like the many friends that I've made at UUCY, and also the number of people in our community that have different gifts and different talents that I've seen become so necessary to making peaceful but powerful change. There are a lot of things that I know that we share together, things that we want to fight for and ways that we want to help support our community's most vulnerable. But there's one in particular that I'm here to talk to you about this week, and that's the Poor People's Campaign, a moral revival. As many of you know from following Reverend Dr. Barber and Liz Theo-Harris, the Poor People's Campaign is not new. It actually started in 1968 because the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and the people that worked with him recognized that there was a separation that pulled systemic racism and people living with poverty and a militarized government. And they said all these issues are very different things and they need to be fought individually. The revolution of the Poor People's Campaign was saying that all of these issues disproportionately affect low-income, low-wage workers, or poor people. If we can unite all these groups together, stop fighting each other, stop competing for resources, and buying into the narrative that there's only so much and that we have to fight each other on the bottom of the totem pole so that we can all have enough, we could actually create a moral majority where we could recognize that these tiny, tiny percentages of individuals who control the vast amount of wealth in our country are where the real injustice lies. The new Poor People's Campaign that began in the summer of 2018 and that I was blessed enough to be able to travel with and tour the country to see from Appalachia to Baltimore how poor people were mobilizing and organizing to make change in their communities. It holds all of those initial principles from Dr. King's movement. Anti-racism, unity, calling for a demilitarization of our government and of our police forces that are being used too often against the people instead of for their care and support. And yes, we also have added a new pillar to the Poor People's Campaign, recognition that climate justice, that ecological devastation is a huge contributor to poor health, to a lack of resource, and to the continued oppression of poor people. So in addition to eliminating poverty that affects humans, we also need to stop exploiting and creating a poverty of planet. Those 4 issues are the current core that are behind what is planned to be a very exciting event on June 18th in Washington, D.C. There's a large mass gathering, the first in-person gathering of this scope since before the pandemic. Why now? What are the changes that we've seen in the last 2 years? Well, we've seen the gap between those who have and those who have not significantly rise. We've seen challenges in housing, crisis in healthcare, the lack of ability to care for our elders and to care for our youth, the lack of ability to have fair access to voting, the crisis around redistricting. Here in Pennsylvania, there are amazing groups doing work just on the gift ban. The fact that there's no limit on how much lobbyists can give to a politician. And so a number of human rights bills never make their way to the floor, while the politicians who are keeping these bills from being voted on by the people are receiving concert tickets and fancy vacations. It's not a coincidence. If you'd like to learn more and you'd like to become more involved, the Poor People's Campaign Gathering is June 18th, 2022 in Washington, D.C., and it is a 9 a.m. gather and a 10 a.m. start, and it will be live streamed if it's not possible for you to get down there. But there are other ways to be involved. A new book has been published called We Cry Justice from Broadleaf Books. It's reading the Bible with the Poor People's Campaign, and it's a 52-week devotional and an anthology written by poor people of all different religions, different backgrounds, different cultures, different immigration statuses, ages, and abilities. So every week you can explore a different chapter and learn more about the ways that we encounter sacred texts and interpret them in different traditions, so that we can understand that poverty shapes every aspect of our lives, of our laws, and of our calling. Is studying not for you, and traveling and activism are not perhaps your way? That's also okay. The Poor People's Campaign is gathering creative expressions, artwork, poetry, dance, videos, and actual hard pieces of work, songs for a songbook that is wonderful and available for download from their website. Using the arts to unite, inspire, encourage, and motivate. That was core in the 1960s. It's been part of our service today, and it remains a core aspect of this movement. Why am I sharing all these different ways that the Poor People's Campaign is working to bring together people of different religions, sexualities, regions, geographic, and also in what kind of home we live in, what kind of family we have? Well, because I want us to realize that every one of us has a gift or a talent that we can use for the movement. Now, the Poor People's Campaign is something I'm deeply passionate about because it is an interfaith movement, because it is focused on changing the moral narrative, that we need to step away from value being about how hard can you work, and instead being about how is your work of meaning for others. That instead of saying, how much can we push, it's saying, how much is what we are doing filling our spirits and supporting other people? Instead of valuing profit margins and something that is able to make more money and grow, are we looking at and evaluating, should something grow? Should it remain small? Should it remain intimate? Is it based in love? The Poor People's Campaign has taught me that even in my own activism and advocacy, I was asking a lot of the wrong questions, and I was spending my energy in a lot of the wrong places. This idea of a moral narrative, a way to tell our story that reflects care of other people, and how can we be doing our best for those who have the least? How can we be sharing our resources, not by trying to imagine that we're all the same, but by recognizing that if we acknowledge each other's very different realities and experiences and find ways that we can come together and work together, we can create a moral majority that will allow us to make real change. And that has been deeply powerful for me. Too many of our fusion movements or our moral movements don't allow space for me to be a Black woman with the perspective of a Black woman, or an LGBTQ person. being a member of the LGBTQ community is an important part of my culture and my identity. It's valuable to me to be a Gen Xer or a woman of middle age, and I carry many of my Southern traditions, my Midwestern roots, and my East Coast habits. I don't want to give up the things that make me unique. That is where I draw my resilience, my power, my joy, and my personality from, the same way that I'm also a poet and an artist, a speaker, and an activist. Can we create a movement that celebrates our differences, that uplifts our diversity, that allows us each to be different, to have a different perspective, but that promotes a style of interaction that involves listening to each other, centering cultural competence, using community agreements to curate brave, specific spaces that allow us to use our I statements and to tell our own stories, recognizing that other people's version of truth may be very different. Can we work on our own bias, eliminating and managing it? Can we use those core aspects of diversity, equity, and inclusion trainings and then find ways to create a moral fusion movement that uplifts our differences and still combines into a moral majority that works together for change? I believe that we can, and the Poor People's Campaign has been one of the powerful models that shows it's possible. Whether you become part of the Poor People's Campaign or not, please take from this the fact that you have gifts, that whether your gifts are artistic or logistic, there is a place for you in the work of community. There is some skill and gift that you have that can be contributed to building the beautiful community in which we have equity. And if you have been part of any diversity or cultural competency movement, please remember that we are different, that it's okay to be different, that we don't have to apologize or eliminate or assimilate or pretend that our different needs, truths, and personalities aren't a huge part of who we are. Our differences are why we have strength, because what one person cannot contribute, another can. So let's uplift the different ways that we interact with each other, the different truths that we carry, the different experiences that we have, and find ways to interact intentionally, thoughtfully, respectfully, and bravely to create a shared agenda that benefits our community. I ask you to join me in a short meditation as I close. I thank you, Spirit, for bringing us together in this space, whether in our own homes, in a space of sanctuary, through our phones, our computers. Help us remember that wherever we are, whoever we are not alone, that there is strength and power in our unity, our shared sense of purpose, and that our greatest strength comes in combining our differences for a singular cause, that of equity and justice for all of us. Ashe, and every blessing to you, my friends.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy is in a holy place. We are blessed with love and amazing grace when our heart is in a holy place. When we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with our love behind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our hearts stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.